pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, we do have a blue heron attending the meeting outside.
Yes.
Do we really? Oh, we do. Huh, cool. Now I really want to switch positions.
Or just spin the chair around.
Be appropriate. Okay, so we have Mr. Scanlon here to go over the audit. Would you like to come to the hot seat?
Yeah.
Were you guys able to read what Chris had sent over?
I saw it, yeah.
Did you see it, Greg?
Yeah, I didn't read the whole thing. I got most of it.
I don't know if you want to wait. He's not scheduled at 5:35, but not that anybody would come. I don't know. But just in case. It's up to you.
Nah. You're good.
That's it. That's all the fiscal year 2021 audit. I thought it went well. With no disagreements with management, we had no adjustments we gave to the ledger. So it went very smoothly, especially during this COVID environment that we're in. 21 was kind of the height of it, fiscal year. That's what you operated in from July of 20 to June 21. I thought what we dealt with, that was very, very excellent. The handling of your financial records. All your core policies and procedures stayed sound throughout that, which I reference that as the reconciliation of your cash, the balancing of your receivables. Those are your two main assets. Still maintained all your expenditures went through warrants. So when you're operating in that environment, either remote or coming in, that says a lot about kind of like the procedures you have in place. So I usually like to point that out. So just during the financial highlights, sitting your OPEB, you have OPEB liability out there. It's approximately $36 million. I don't expect you to funding a liability overnight at $36 million. But it's more of how you're dealing with it. I think it's going to be in the back of your minds when you're setting future budgets. It's a cost out there. It's a promise you made to people that when they retire, you're going to pay X amount of health insurance. We did adopt an OPEB trust. I think we're $800,000 in it. Yeah, $856,000 at June 30th. So financially, you're doing well there. How that translates into your financial policies, and I think they're very sound what you're doing. Keep it up. When bond rating agencies look at you and look from outside, on your balance sheet, your unassigned fund balance is $6.3 million. Kind of compared to your budget, your budget's about $22 million, so about 28%. So you don't get that higher percentage without some core financial practices you're doing. And again, maybe you can go back and look at your budget, how you set your budget, how you set your recap through COVID, which would be 21 and 22. You were able to adjust on the fly and be very flexible with the setting of your recap. For instance, when the state budget was not set in stone and you were setting your recap, remember all those fun times going, you went with a flat state budget and you were able to set it because of your financial policies that had in allowed you to get through that compared to some other communities that were really up against their levy ceiling, against their levy wall. So your core is working, which is good to see. A couple of notes is, right now there's a lot of money out there. The COVID grants, there's a lot of grant compliance. This year you were subject to the single audit, which is you spent over $750,000 in federal funds. You haven't had the single audit at least a decade here. So going forward, the grant compliance is going to be key for the town, mainly at the school department and the ARPA money and the CARES. I will say, from looking across 80 municipalities and audits over the past 2 years, your CARES was very well managed. when you look at things, when things were being spent, how it's submitted for reimbursement. So just from the outside looking in, I think we commented on that. And then going forward, the town was awarded an ARPA grant, I think it was like 1.8 approximately. How you use that money going forward, that's a lot of money for a town this size. One thing about ARPA is there's a component in there, a revenue loss, that is a $10 million pension. Obviously, you're below the 10 million, so I would encourage adopting, taking advantage of that and using the 1.8 million all under revenue loss. And that will kind of release the restrictions, not using it to water and sewer, allow you to open up to any governmental service. Maybe it causes more headaches for it, I don't know. But I would encourage going that route with the revenue loss. And just overall, so there's the next couple of years is going to be all about grant compliance, with the money coming into the system between the ESSER grants flowing through the school, CARES, ARPA, and then also the other little grants that flow through. There's also a lot of $20,000 grants also flowing through COVID, that's some kind of COVID related to it. But kind of outside of that, I don't know if you have any questions. I'm trying to hit everything. I know so you should have 3 documents: financial statements, the single audit, which is new this year, then the management report. Management report, very little recommendations in there. Basically, some future GASBs coming out, which gave Chris some good reading going forward. The only other piece in there is that probably adopting a procedurals manual, getting it writing before these 2 individuals decide to call it quits. There's a lot of, we'll call it internal knowledge. That's for these 2 brains. A lot of things, a lot of procedures they have in place that probably they've been doing for 30 years that are just kind of there and they're working. Obviously, your controls work through COVID, which is good. I can think of a lot of times that didn't. So trying to get that internal knowledge on paper, so someone coming after them kind of knows the procedures you have in place. Outside of that, if there's any ARPA questions.
No?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's good. Then we've got, Mira wants to look at anything, any concerns about the year, don't want to reach out.
Any warning signs or just that 32 million, we gotta start working on something on that?
The OPEB
retirement stuff, yeah.
I think you're doing what you can. You adopted a trust, I think you funded 75,000 you put in there?
175,000.
Yeah. And that was an awful one, so.
Close.
And just come up with a plan on how to use that going forward. At some point, you're going to hit a breaking point when they're okay, it goes so much in the fund, can I start using it towards my budget? I mean, probably a couple of years away from that, but if you're funding at 175, 200 a clip for the next 10 years, how that factors in, how can I start using it to fund my budget? And also, when you're hiring new positions, you've got to be in your head of, okay, one position costs multiple health insurance costs. If I have retirees that position, pay for it, so it should be in your thinking. And that's it.
Well, I like to hear that there's no issues, so.
Yeah, no major, not that I see anything.
Tom, I just want to thank you and your firm for doing a really thorough audit. I know since I've been on the select board, I've been through several of these with you, and you've always been very thorough and really letting us know if anything needs to be done, and I always appreciate that. And you kind of made note, and I'd like to publicly thank Steve Nally and Chris Martin. It shows that the work they do day in and day out definitely plays a big factor on that because I know we compare ourselves, I think it's last year, maybe the year before, talking about how our town compared to some other towns, we're doing pretty good,
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
so.
Thank you.
Get down to the next item.
You as well.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye, Tom. Thank you.
Thanks. Good to see you, Tom.
All right, so we have Mr. Sullivan at 6. Do you have anything in the meantime?
Well, we can continue on through correspondence.
Well, I'm saying, do you have anything?
Correspondence, there's a couple in there. We got a letter from DCR saying we have to update our emergency response plan for, I think it has to deal with the Forge Pond one, because I think that's the only one filed the plan on. We didn't file anything on the one at Two Franks Park, so I'm sure that's the one they're referring to. So I'll get a hold of the consultant and see what he has to do to update that
Okay.
for whatever the current regulations are. The other item is the election warrant that was submitted to me from the town clerk. Town election is Monday, May 16th, 2022, at the high school gymnasium. And she is, I think she put in the hours of 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. for the election hours.
Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, I think you probably should.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Town of Granby, Annual Town Election Warrant. Hampshire. To one of the constables of the Town of Granby in the County of Hampshire. Greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town qualified to vote in elections to meet at Granby Junior Senior High School at 385 East State Street in said town for precincts 1, 2, and 2A on Monday, the 16th day of May, 2022, from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Then and there to cast their votes for the following offices. For 3 years, a select board member, an assessor, a board of health member, a town clerk, a school committee member, a commissioner of burial grounds, and 3 public library trustees. For 5 years, a housing authority member and a planning board member. And you are hereby directed to serve this warrant by posting attested copies thereof at 5 or more public places as of the bylaws before the time of said meeting. Hereof fail not and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of meeting as aforesaid. Given under our hands this 4th day of April in the year of our Lord, 2022. So,
Okay.
that's that.
Those are the only 2 items I want to cover under the correspondence with the board.
Okay.
We do have one due frame rental. It's a birthday party for May 21st, 2022, arriving 1 p.m., departing 6 p.m., and they'll be using the number 1 small pavilion on the playground side.
I'm sorry, what day was that?
May 21st.
Thank you.
And with town meeting fast approaching, May 9th, I will be bringing the warrant in for the board to sign at your next meeting on the 9th. Because we'll have both a special and the annual town meeting warrant for the 9th. So,
We skipped citizen participation, I'm sorry. Is there anybody that has anything they'd like to? No? All right, so departmental reports. Has everybody seen them?
I read them.
Yep.
Is there a motion?
I don't know if you would have seen the latest one. I just had put one in maybe about
4-ish?
half hour, 45 minutes.
4:30-ish.
Mission being Turgeon's
I didn't see that. The last one I saw
No,
was
I did not.
around 1 o'clock or so you sent.
It should be right in the folder
Yeah.
there, so if you want to read that, that was her final report as the interim fire chief, as that was her last day at the interim.
Okay.
Need a motion?
I do.
I make a motion that we accept the department reports.
I'll second Rick's motion.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Maintenance warrants.
You have 3 warrants in front of you. Warrant number 59, dated 3/25/22, in the amount of $398,268.23. That is a bill-paying warrant. We have warrant number 60, dated April 1st, 2022, in the amount of $443,286.02. That is a payroll warrant. And warrant number 61, dated April 1st, 2022, in the amount of $169,923.84. And that is the maintenance warrant that goes along with the payroll.
Need a motion? Make a motion that we approve and sign the maintenance warrants number 59, 60, and 61.
Is there a second?
I'll second Rick's motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we have 10 minutes before Mr. Sullivan. Do you have anything that you have not gone over?
I just want to report, we did have that joint meeting with the Finance Committee and the School Committee meeting. And Glenn and I did stay later on as part of that subcommittee that night. We did meet last Thursday night, and we are trying to come up to a happy medium on the difference between what the school indicates that they need to operate the budget and what the town had budgeted.
Are we that far off?
Actually, it was interesting because when you looked at the FY '21 difference, it was like $727,000 difference. And for FY '22, and then for FY '23, it's like $729,000 difference. So, just a matter of trying to come to an agreeable number.
Yeah. I do want to really say publicly, I know those meetings, well, the 2 meetings that we did have, that we were discussing things about the budget for the school, but I really want to recognize Chris for the work he did and brought forward, just really representing the town completely, and just bringing forward information and figures, and really looking at all different aspects, how, you know, how a budget would impact the town on a positive side and a negative side. Not to, you know, to use those type of words, but really just kind of looking at all the different information that he could possibly bring forward. And Chris, I want to acknowledge that. I mean, I was very pleased and more so impressed just the amount of knowledge that you had, and it wasn't papers he had in front of him. It was from his head. You know, he was just coming out with the information, and it was very nice to hear that. but also to see it in this, the numbers and the information that you had was, it was nice to, again, to hear that, but I just want to really acknowledge that because, like I said, that wasn't a meeting that was, you know, for the public there. It was just a small group of people from each committee, from the school committee, from the select board, and the finance committee, and also, you know, Steve Sullivan was there as well. So I just really want to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Are you ready, Mr. Sullivan?
You are.
Come on up.
Thank you for squeezing me into your agenda tonight. Really just seeking the select board's approval to submit a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. The window for this year remains open until April 29th. And the two steps that we need in order to submit that are approval of the school committee and the select board. It's an almost identical application that we submitted last year. I think in talking to MSBA, that application, you know, it served us well, and you know, the reason, and we talked a little bit about this last Thursday in the meeting that Glenn's referencing. The reason that I'm asking that we submit again is every year we don't submit, we could lose that opportunity. And I'm not saying here today that, you know, the town should or should not be prepared to pursue a full renovation or feasibility study or build at this point. But if we don't get the application in, that's another year. And if we were invited to partner with MSBA, they say it's a 5 to 7 year timeline once invited in. So my hope is that we'll keep submitting until the information is out there and people are comfortable with it and ultimately a decision's made. I just don't want to miss an opportunity.
Yeah, I didn't notice any big changes. Do you know anything specifically that has changed between this one and the one before? I didn't compare the two side by
I
side.
think a couple of, it asks about like reductions in
The staffing.
staff or things like that from one building to another over the course of that year. Those are some of the minor changes, but the substance of it is identical.
I have one question about it, and I don't even know if it was in the last one, I don't remember it. But it was the statement that the junior and senior high school has been a part of 2 MSBA projects that have both been denied at town meeting. Is that a statement we have to have in there? Is that in there for a specific purpose? I mean, I know
It
we're
was
not
in the
hiding
last
it,
one.
but it's,
No,
I
I
don't
think
know.
we were just providing context,
Okay.
but it doesn't need to be.
I didn't know if it would harm our chances, given that, you know,
I think at this point, some of it is speculative, but MSBA, we did advance to the senior study, which is like the next step after submitting the statement of interest. And so now they've been in, they've seen the building. So the information that we had in the application, at least they felt like it warranted them coming out to view the building. And that was in it.
okay,
last
I
time.
couldn't remember if it was, and again, I didn't compare them side by side, I just went by what I remember reading.
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't want to harm our chances.
Nor do I.
Anybody else have any questions?
I don't know.
All right. So would we like to take a vote on whether or not we're going to sign this?
Yes.
All right, so here's the paragraph that I have to read per MSBA. Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on April 4th, 2022, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the Select Board of Granby, Mass., in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the Statement of Interest form dated March 22nd, 2022, for the Granby Junior Senior High School located at 385 East State Street, Granby, Mass., which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Number 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems, such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation systems, to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in the school facility. And number 7, replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the Granby Public School District to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So that is technically our motion.
I'll second Jen's motion as read.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Get that signed for you.
Steve,
Yes.
do you want them to sign their copy of the SOI here on those two spots on the actual SOI? There's one on the second page and there's one on the last page.
Yeah, I think it now needs to be done electronically, the electronic signatures that I believe it's the school committee chair, select board chair, and yourself.
You,
EU and school committee chair, I think. But I think those have to be electronic, and then the vote needs to be on town letterhead and certified through the town clerk.
you're getting a signed copy of it tonight.
Excellent.
So what we're signing now.
Excellent. Thank you.
One copy is for our records, just like the board.
Now, does Kathy Kelly Regan have to certify that as well?
No.
Here you are, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
night.
You too.
You
Take care,
too.
Steve.
Thank you.
So we will move on to the last topic of the night, which is our fire chief discussion. I know, Glenn, you wanted to review.
I did.
Would you like to start us off?
I would.
Okay.
I guess after I reviewed the two interviews, I'd like for this board to consider to do a second interview with the candidates. And the more I thought about it, I think some things, at least for myself, I think some things were missed that I'd like to have more information on from each of the candidates. Especially if this is someone looking to fill our fire chief for hopefully a good amount of time. So as I said, there's a couple of things that I came up just watching it that I'd like some more information from the candidates and some input from them. And also I'd like to even consider doing some different type of scenarios with them on certain different types of things, something like fire management, an actual fire, some personnel issues and stuff like that. I'd like to see how each candidate would respond to those type of things. I know the search committee did a lot and probably asked a lot of, I'm sure, important questions and got a lot of information, but not having all the information and for me to come up with I think, where I feel confident with the candidate, I think I need to look at and kind of go through some more questions with them.
I think we had the opportunity to write the questions we wanted to submit down and ask them at that time. I'm ready to make the decision now, but then again, I had a little more insight and stuff that you had.
Yes.
So I see where you're coming from, but, I mean, we should have, if you had that doubt in it, you should have asked those questions and submitted them then.
Well, I don't think
I'm
it's
not
a.
totally opposed to
No,
what you're asking,
no,
but
I don't think that's a doubt, Rick, that I have. I think it's more information I have. And many times when you're looking to, someone to have that type of, position, there are second and third interviews that people would go to. Because it's a continuing, piece. That's why I am. Like I said, I watched them, I'm like, gee, I wish I would've asked that. Well, I wish I would've asked that. You know, because listening to myself, listening to it again, you know, even looking at my notes, thinking, you know, gee, I like to, like I said, hear how, if we had some different situations, how that person would react to that, and how that person would solve that. And I said, you might have done that through the interviews that you had with the search committee. I don't know, but I know, all I can tell you is when I think when I did the, I was on the search committee for the police chief, and I felt that I had so much more information than the board had, for the same reason you're talking about, because I sat through other interviews with the individuals. So that's my take on it, where I am, and I can tell you, for myself, I'm not prepared to vote tonight on it, so. I mean, it's up to the board, but that's, I say, where I am to it.
I would say if we do vote to set them up for another interview, you do it as soon as possible before they take a job somewhere else.
Well, I would agree, we try to have that as soon as possible, without a doubt. I'm not looking to prolong this, but I'm also want to make sure that, you know, we have the right person for this position. That's really the point I'm making. It's, you know, this is really for us to decide, at least for myself, to say that this is who I feel confident in, this is who I want, because it's you know, it is a strong chief, so the person we put in there is going to be there. And you know, just saying that, I went through a lot before with the previous chief and going through all that, and I just want to make sure for myself to make, you know, that I feel 100% confident this is the person I think that would do the best job.
Okay. Well, I will weigh in.
Up to you,
on that.
Madam Chairman, but I feel confident.
Well, I'm going to weigh in with my thoughts. I sat through the interviews and then I watched them 4 times, hoping that I would find something that I missed, because I was not blown away by either interview. And I don't necessarily know that having a second interview with either candidate would change my mind on that. There were things that were said by both candidates that raised a red flag in terms of leadership, confidence, things like that. You know, one candidate ended their interview with the phrase, "I don't know if I'm the best person for the job." And that stuck with me, because I can't consider someone who isn't confident that they are the best person for the job. I think that both candidates will make good chiefs somewhere down the line. I don't necessarily feel that either of them are ready, especially for a situation that they'll be coming into. And I'm very disheartened by that. I was hoping that I would be blown away by one of them. And I wasn't. I wasn't even mildly piqued, I guess. And so I'm at a loss as to where we go now. I don't feel that either candidate, given the fact that, as you said, we are strong chiefs, so once we hire this person, we are married. and we can't go through another divorce like we did. And I spoke to some members of the fire department today, and I understand where they're coming from. They do want a permanent chief in there, and they want that permanent chief in there now. And I understand that, you know, they've been in limbo for years. And I don't want to necessarily prolong that, but I don't want to put someone in there for the sake of putting someone in there. You know, I'm looking forward to the future and department members that may not be here for as long as the chief is going to be here, potentially. And when I spoke to these department members today, they both said, you know, they had their preference. They would be okay with either because it's a body, but they had their preference. And I'm not okay with putting the okayest person in there. I don't know how to go forward with this. Do we hire a professional firm and go out again and have them do the posting, do the vetting, do everything? Our committee did an amazing job. They did with what they were given. But I don't think that we gave them a lot, not we, but I don't think they were given a lot to work with in terms of candidates to bring forward, and I think they brought the best that we had gotten. And I'm saddened.
But I guess with a professional firm, how would that change as to who would apply for the position? We reached out to the numerous, I think, avenues, if you will, that we thought we could obtain the best candidates. I don't know if that's different than what a professional.
I don't know. I know we went, I know we advertised nationally. I know we advertised locally. I don't know why. I don't expect, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't expect us to get someone who has been a chief for years. I don't. I understand that the person that we get is going to have some inexperience, and that they're going to have to gain that experience with us, and I'm not opposed to that whatsoever. I didn't feel that the level of experience that either of these candidates had was what we need right now.
I would say we did that twice already. I see it's futile trying to reopen this up and trying to get them waste their town dollars on it. I think we have two candidates, and I think we need to make a decision on these two, whether we bring them back for another interview or not. But
Like I said, I looked at the interviews. I have some additional questions that I like to ask of each candidate in regards to that, which would help me make my decision. On paper, I think they are both, even in the interview, I think they're both reasonable candidates for the position. You're not going to find, I find it hard to believe, you're going to find a current chief that wants to come here and be chief.
Again, I'm not saying we need to have a chief.
Yep, and a lot of your other departments, people tend to stay in those departments for the opportunity to exceed in their own departments. Whether that person is a lieutenant, moves up to deputy chief or chief, I think where you get, where people look to leave, even so leave a department they like, is based on opportunity. Where you may have, and it's just speaking the way I'm looking at the people that have applied, where you could be someone that's been in a department for 15 years, 18 years, 20 years, and be at deputy chief or be at chief, or like the lieutenant or other ranks. However, that the department you're in the chief, which would ultimately probably be your goal, that person would want to achieve, well, it just became chief, and that person's young, and that person's gonna be there for 10, 15 years. So two things you do, either if you want to run your own department, the only option you really have is to look outside your department. Obviously, those are career goals of people, and like I said, that's kind of what I look at when I see the two individuals. I look what they've done, and each one of their own prospective departments and what they've achieved in the departments. And like I said, if you're looking to obtain additional, like that, not as experience, but different additional rank as far as moving up to the position of chief, people need to do that. They gotta look outside their own department. We saw with the police chief. We saw people that I thought were qualified from other departments, just looking, they knew the opportunity wasn't with their own department, just based on who was in the position as chief. So, I mean, I'm okay with the two individuals, meaning to the point I'd like to sit down, like I said, like have a second interview with them and ask some additional questions for myself to feel that I have a better knowledge of who these two individuals are. And recognize, like I said, I respect what the search committee did with this, but the same thing as you kind of made note too, you interviewed these people twice, and I didn't. So that's just where I am. Whether and I could speak to that because when it became the fire chief, I'm sorry, the police chief, I know some of my questions were different the second time around that I asked in the first round with interviews. So that's kind of like where I am now. So I'd like to have the opportunity to interview both candidates again. And I agree with you. I think that the sooner the better, because I think it's, whatever this board does, I think it's important that we do make a decision sooner than later.
I'm ready to go now. But I see your point of view. I've asked those questions several times. And both of you don't know what happened in the interviews. But it's okay. If you want to bring them in for another round, I think it's good. But I'm not open to the idea of opening this back up again and going through that all over again.
Yeah, at this point in time, I'm not, because then, like I said, I don't know where else we could possibly, if we got a professional firm to do it, where else are they gonna advertise? I mean, we advertised for a while for the position. So I don't know what else would be available to us. Are we just prolonging this to go down the road or not? That's my concern.
It's a concern of mine as well, and I'm
And-
not gonna lie. I don't have anything against a second interview, and maybe that will give both candidates a chance to show me that I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that either had a strong interview at all. And I was hoping to see more. And I do agree, there were questions that we probably should have asked that were missed. It was brought to my attention that we did not ask anything about the EMS side of things.
About the what?
EMS side.
No.
And again, our fire chief is also going to be in charge of our EMS, so those are things we should have been asking, and that was our fault for missing those. So if that's what the board would like to do, I'm willing to look at them a second time.
I mean, that's where I am. I mean, I can tell you
And
that
hope
I'm not,
that my opinion has changed.
that's just where I am right now. I just, like as I said, I'm not ready to vote. I was pleased with both candidates. I said, but there's some questions I need answered just to make me feel better as to my decision, that's all.
So do we want to get those scheduled for the end of the week?
We can look at, well, it would have to be a public, so,
When's the last day we can post?
Yeah. Then you gotta make sure they are available.
right.
Probably do the 8th or the 11th, probably be the earliest. You get it done.
The 11th is,
Tomorrow.
the 11th is Monday?
Yep.
So why don't we look at Monday and see if we can do something for Monday with both candidates? And with nothing else on the agenda, I think we do the same, we could probably start at 5:30, right? I think there's a need to go to,
No, we can go right to 5:30.
Yeah.
And
unless someone can't make it at that time, then that's understandable.
And do you only want to do half hour in between versus the
Yeah,
hour?
we don't need to.
Yeah, yeah, and if it runs longer, so be it, instead of, not sitting idle for 15, 20 minutes.
What are we talking, 8th or the 11th?
The
11th.
11th, Monday.
The 11th.
Does that work for you, Rick?
Yeah, I'll make it work.
Do you have anything planned that day?
Dad's 92nd birthday, so, but I'm
You wanna
gonna
do
take him out
12?
to dinner over the weekend.
Do you want to do it Tuesday?
You want to do the 12th?
No, I'm gonna take him out over the weekend. Don't
You
watch
sure?
this. He doesn't know that yet.
Now he knows, he
Now he
does now.
I think he's got better things to do with.
Well, I'm available
Let's do it
Tuesdays.
the 11th. Let's do
So,
it the 11th.
but if you decide next couple of days that, you know what, Monday you'd rather do it Tuesday, I'm fine with that.
I
Based on
got
what you
it, I
have.
got it down.
All right.
So can you contact both candidates first thing tomorrow? Just gonna put that in my schedule so that nobody blocks it out.
But I mean, for this board, I will say I was a little disappointed that they didn't know more information or have more information about the Granby Fire Department.
That was.
And I just look at myself when I've applied for certain positions, and I make sure I do my homework. And I wish someone would have done a better job with that. That's there.
Is there anything else anybody needs to talk about?
Here you go, Mike.
So is there anything else under old business? And it's been taken care of?
That's what I thought.
It was the, put us on hold. So there's that.
It's up there.
Well, actually, yes, and it also involves the fire department. That our former chief is no longer there. I think we need to have a formal announcement that who would be running it as far as our deputy chief, and really so that the fire department understands that, because we don't have a chief there anymore.
Correct, we don't have a chief.
It's not like the chief is on vacation or gone away or so on and so forth. There's actually no chief there now. So I think it's important that we acknowledge our
yes.
deputy chief to run the department through the time frame that we're waiting to have a new chief appointed. I think that's important information. I think that information is important that goes to the rank and file, if you will, in regards to that, so they have an understanding, like I said, obviously, as we say, we know that the deputy chief comes underneath the chief, but in reality is our chief is no longer there, so I want to maybe make it official that our deputy chief is the person running the department at this time.
So he's in
Is
command.
the person in charge?
The person in charge,
Not
yeah.
promoting them.
No, I think it's as deputy chief, as we've done before, we've had where our chief wasn't there, our deputy chief stepped in, so I think it's the same type of reason, that person steps in and as deputy chief can run the day-to-day operations of the department.
But I'm sure was told, wasn't he? Chris?
I don't know, but I think this is the board that
This is
would make sure that
the
he
board.
knows that, so.
Yeah.
You know, I think, maybe formally send a letter to him too, and to notify him that he is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the fire department. That's our responsibility to let him know that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure he assumes it and realizes it, but I think it's important that this board does that. I think when he watches the meeting, he'll know.
Are there any legal, not complications, ramifications, thank you. My brain shut down on that one because I was writing. Are there any legal ramifications to us not having a chief?
I don't think so, because we've done that in the past with
We've had,
Bruce Carpenter.
Bruce Carpenter
who was
stepped
the
in as deputy chief.
In the time that we released our former chief and between the time we got the first interim chief, he did day-to-day operations.
I just want to make sure there's nothing legal,
Illegal.
nothing legal that we're not doing.
Illegal.
Illegal.
I don't want to do anything illegal.
No, you're saying you're making sure we're not doing anything legal.
No, I'm saying I'm making sure there's nothing legal that we have to do.
Oh, okay. Now I got it.
Now you got it?
Got it. Just a different way of saying it, but yes, I got
A
it.
different way of saying it. I was trying to put the positive instead of the negative. So you'll get that notification to Tyler?
Yes,
Formal?
and I'll check with town council to make sure we're not doing anything legal.
We better be doing things legal.
Illegal.
That's where my mind is, illegal.
Right.
I was.
But I remember, sorry, less things have changed. I remember, we sent this down to town council before when this came up.
But I'll check.
Yeah, please do. Yep, absolutely.
Things change,
Yep.
and I don't want to get caught on that short end of the stick.
Nope.
All right.
There is no need for executive session tonight because the individual we were going to meet with is unable to make the meeting tonight, so.
Unless we would like to go in to talk about proposed changes. There would be no rebuttal on them, but we could still talk about them. But that's your decision.
I'd still like to go into executive session to discuss that.
You'd like to go and
Okay.
discuss those changes?
Yeah.
You on board with that?
And then you go.
We can still go into executive to discuss the changes that we would have been discussing tonight. But we
Okay.
won't have the
Yeah,
individual
of
here
course. Yeah.
to. Does anybody have anything else before we enter into executive? Going once? Going twice? All right. I move we enter executive session under Mass General Law 30A21A-2 to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. We will be returning only to adjourn.